Hello everyone. You're looking at Fred while you're looking at me for a few minutes, but just thought I would let you see me and say hi, but we don't need this. So you're looking at Fred here, which is the tool that we're going to be using for modules 11 through 15. And this part of the course, macroeconomics, we're going to change a little bit. The learning assessments are going to require you to submit a graph every time. And let me tell you how this is going to go. And in particular, I'm going to do the first one for you. So all you have to do is to follow along with me and you can be fine. So the very first thing I want you to do is to get your account on Fred. You're going to find all this information under current data sources in module 11. The very first link talks about getting your Fred account. So go do that, stop the video, come back, and we'll get to the next step. So if you're back from that, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have in each module a requirement to create a graph. And there's some reasons for this that I think make some really good sense. For example, this is your textbook. And notice that it shows the graphics only updated to 2015 there on the left. What is the percentage of GDP made up by government spending? And it's like everywhere 20%, and consumption's everywhere like 60 to 70%. And it's always in that bound. Is that still the case? We want to find this out by using actual data from right now. So how are we going to do this? Well, we do this by going to Fred. But let's look at the assignment. And I'm going to walk you through the assignment, give you an introduction to Fred, give you the ability to create this assignment exactly, and you'll be able to save the file and upload it. We'll even walk through how we're going to upload into a learning assessment. That might sound really weird, but here we go. So the first thing is to check out what is the requirement. And the requirement moved on me. Hang on.
I have a lighter.
There it is. The requirement is under create a graph, and it's going to be in every module, and it's going to say required, create a graph. Then there's going to be a question or some information about what you need to do to create your graph. This week, module 11, has the amount of federal government spending increased with the COVID recession, and is this consistent with past emergencies since World War II? Well, your book didn't show you all the way back to World War II, and you can do that in Fred, and we're going to find out whether this is true. So the next thing is to say create a graph in Fred and save its image as a PRN file. That's the default, so you shouldn't have any problem with that. When you submit your learning assessment, you'll be asked to include it. Now, step number 1, we're going to graph nominal GDP on the left axis of our graph. Left axis is normal. That's the default. That's what happens. So let's go back to Fred. I've already typed in GDP, or I could go down here where it says GDP and click on it, because that's very convenient. It would just take me there. And we're going to search for everything that Fred has on GDP. Before I press enter, before you press enter, I do want you to familiarize yourself with some other things. The macro snapshot, you really ought to go look at that. Wonderful, up-to-date data, and we're going to talk just about everything that's in there in these modules. So you want to just look through there. It's very nice, very interactive type thing. And then down here, we're going to see, for instance, here's real gross domestic product. It fell 0.6% from the second quarter. So we have that there, and we can click on it, and it will take us and show us. Now we're looking at nominal GDP. On this assignment, real GDP is normally what we would do. But we could click on popular series, and it would come up and show us some other things, like over here, there's the unemployment rate. That's kind of popular. But let's go back up. We type GDP into the Fred graph, and we're going to click search. Now we have some choices. We can do gross domestic product, real gross domestic product, real gross domestic product per capita, that means divided by the population, or the implicit price deflator, that is the implied price increases in GDP, and a whole lot of more. But it turns out That's the one we want. So let's just click on it and see what happens. It draws a graph. Everything's done. If I'd ask you to graph nominal GDP and turn it in, you're done. That's it, one click. So I ask you to do a little bit more. So what do we need to do now? Well, first off, let's see what we have here. There's a lot of information on here. Notice when I change my cursor, the amount changes. And whoa, look there. Quarter two to 2020, that was COVID. GDP fell to $19 trillion, and it was 21 trillion. That's quite a fall. Okay, it's more precision than that, but that gives you the idea. But then we picked back up afterwards, so that looks like it's pretty good, right? Here's the last observation, quarter two, 2022.
When you're trying to place it?
It's in billions of dollars. It's seasonally adjusted data, which means we're not going to see highs and lows because it happens to be cold in the winter or warm in the summer or school's in or school's out. And we have frequency. The data comes out every quarter. Now, I did say, let's look at this over the last 10 years. That was the assignment. So we could go in here and we could actually search for the date 10 years ago, or there's this handy little button right here. It says, show me only the last 10 years. Oh, there we go. Now, before we go on, there's two buttons here that I will talk about later, share links and account totals. But notice down here in the notes, there's a lot of information about where did it come from, what are the units, what's the account code, what's the description. And more importantly, if you're writing a paper, you have your suggested citation right there. Throw it in your bibliography. You're done. Now, how do we get GDP? Well, there's a table that shows us where it comes out and all the different reports. It's really easy to find. There's more information, but let's move on. Now, number two, we want to graph the percentage of GDP that is federal government expenditures on this and put it on the right-hand axis. Because the left-hand axis is measured in billions of dollars, so we'll have the right-hand axis measured in that. But if you search for that percentage, it's not there. But what we can do, and by the way, don't go up here and search, or it will take away what you see and find something else for you and replace it. We don't want that. We want this graph. We like this graph, and we want to edit it. So see, get this thing sliding over. Now, I was getting from them an annoying little take this survey, and you've got to click that off. It's the banner because it's hiding things like edit line 1, add line, format, and so forth. So we don't need to edit line 1. We could, for instance, let me just show you that if you wanted to change this to growth, the growth would be the percentage change from the last period. How has it changed? And there's the percentage change in terms of growth. See how cool that is? So you can do any kind of calculation on this that you want. You could do a percentage change from last year or just change in terms of billions of dollars. But we're going to leave this where we found it at the beginning. That's billions of dollars. But we are going to go over here at the top and add a line because we want federal government expenditures. And that's actually what it's called. Let's say we didn't quite know that. I'm just going to type government, EXPEND. I can stop, it's searching as you type. So I can see things here. Here's government total expenditures. And you might say, hey, that's what he asked me to do. No, it's not. That's all government. How would you know that? When you brought it into your graph, you go down, you read the notes, it'll tell you where it comes from, and it'll say that state, local, and federal government expenditures calculated, every quarter in billions of dollars. That's not quite what we want. So do we want federal government current transfer payments? No, we don't want transfer payments, but we do want current expenditures. We have tax revenues here. Ooh, that sounds interesting. What about expenditures versus tax revenues? You might want to do that one, but that's not what I've asked you to do. So we want federal government current expenditures. This is G. of the C plus I plus G plus X minus M definition of gross domestic product. So we're going to add the data series.
All right.
And up at the top it says edit lines. Notice I've got 2 lines, and it tells me which one I'm editing right now, line 2. And I do want to edit this one because this is kind of cool. It shows me the government expenditures in red down there. And if I slide my cursor, I can read the numbers for any whatever. But that's not what I ask. I ask, what is the percentage of GDP that's spent by government every quarter, and did that change during COVID? All right, so how are we going to do this? Well, all I have here is federal government expenditures. If you go down here, it says customize the data, write a custom formula. So what formula would we want? How about government expenditures, G, divided by GDP? So I'm going to go in here, add a series to combine, it says, and I'm going to type GDP. Now it's the same search we got before. We know that it's this particular one that we want, which is gross domestic product. That's nominal. And we want to add it. We'll click on that. Now notice line 2 is still the primary line, federal government current expenditures. Nothing changed. But in this, I have line A, which is my G, and I have line B, which is gross domestic product. So what if I go down here to formula, and I say, right now the formula is A, because it's just saying, all right, there's 2 lines here, so let's pick up A and graph it, right, because it's the primary line. But I'm going to say divide that by B. Just that simple. And apply it. Oh, it disappeared. Well, it really didn't. It calculated it, but it can't distinguish it when the scale's billions of dollars from 0, because it's now in percentage terms, or at least proportion terms, right? So this is where we use the format. So we're going to go over to format, and we'll notice that the format, there's a bunch of things you can play with and change, turn the titles on and off and what have you. But gross domestic product is line 1. It's a solid blue line with 2 on the left axis. Federal government current expenditures divided by gross domestic product.
That's all right.
There's a red line that's solid, and it's on the left axis. Well, let's put it on the right axis.
Teleport to the trailer.
And there we have it. So now you have the graph that you were asked to create. So what has happened to gross domestic product in terms of federal government expenditures? Was that affected by COVID, which occurred in early 2020? Yes. In fact, I only asked you to give me a graph for the last 10 years. And part of that is so that you could see it. But we could look at the last 5 years and see it more dramatically, or we could look at the maximum, all the data. So what is the red line showing us? It's showing us, reading on the right axis, that federal government expenditure has always been, her right post-war, it was a little bit low and so forth, but let's jump out to about 1960. Let's say it was 17%. Here's a high of 23%. Here's a high in about 2010 of 25%. And then in COVID,
I did Berezino.
It's 45% of all GDP. Now, a lot of GDP fell because we weren't investing. Our businesses were not open. A lot of things were going on, right? That consumers were probably uncertain. They didn't buy a whole lot right then. So that 45% government expenditures was doing a lot of replacement. But what about this?
I haven't seen it yet.
36%.
No.
Federal government expenditures.
No.
That's in 2021, first quarter. What is that associated with? That's the American Rescue Plan under Joe Biden.
Well, you could fix
so
that.
there's that huge expenditure.
Where?
And
Where?
even if we look at our last
Oh,
expenditure here, we're just now getting back down to the 23, and that's assuming we don't spend any more. What is all that spending done to the economy? And I'm going to leave you hanging on that one because let's finish out this and get the assignment ready to submit. Okay? So you have your account, and you can go up here and you can make sure you're logged in. Look at this. I have 100 and
Oh,
what is
wait.
that? 34
I haven't
graphs,
done my
and I
shopping
have
yet.
9 data lists and so forth. So
But
you'll get that too.
Nice.
But we're going to go down here and we're going to go under
I'm just
account
gonna take a
totals
quick look
and
and-
click on that. And we're going to say save the graph. Now when the graph comes up, it's
Okay.
going to look something like this. You're not going to have these categories because I've created those over the years. You're going to see up here multi-series graph. What you want to do is you
Yeah.
want to highlight that and we're going to change it. So you're going to type a title that always allows you to recognize what this graph is. So I'm going to say
Well, they
GDP
may-
versus G divided by GDP. See if it'll let me use that symbol in the name. We're going to find out. We're going to save the
Yeah.
graph.
You could.
And it saved the graph. All right. So it's now in your account and you can go find it anytime. Anytime you log back in, that graph is still there. But that doesn't get it into your learning assignment. Or assessment. Let's do that. Let's share the link.
We can go.
We could share by the URL. If you share a page short URL, it will go back to this and allow whoever you share it with to actually play with the data. They can go in, they'll have their own page. They're not affecting yours. You're giving them a copy of your graph that they can play with. Or you could do image short URL, which means you're sharing a picture and they can't do anything. And if you're running a website, you can embed it. Well, none of that helps us. So let's go up to the download button here and we're going to download it. And remember I said send it as an image, nothing else. Send it as an image. So we're going to click on that and it's going to come up and say, what do you want to save it as? Well, I'm going to save it as, because I've already did this before, this is in my desktop folder. I'm going to save it as module 11 graph. Right? Since you have to do one of these and you can't see the save button, it's a little bit off the screen. It says it's already exists because I saved it before. Do you want to replace it? Yes. And now I have it. Okay? So here's how you submit the new learning assessments. Now, they're new because in macro, I'm asking you completely different questions. So here we go. Read the form carefully. The questions have changed. This is the form that you're going to see. I'm not going to show you anything else because it's all exactly the same there at the top. But I'm asking a different questions or set of different questions, including upload the Fred graph image you were assigned in this module. So I've loaded up the Word document. Remember, you got to download that document from Brightspace to your hard drive. Many of you've done all kinds of things and not complied. Now you have to, or this won't work. Save that document as a Word document. You're now looking at the Word document. You go to this little image right here and you click on it. And it says, where do you want to insert
and
it from?
they're supposed to be
Well,
safe under.
You could have saved it into your OneDrive if you have that, or where, I don't care where you save it. But I know mine is from a file. And it's going to open up and say, where do you want to look? This is the wrong directory. I've got it on my desktop. I've made that change. Some of these things are off the screen you can't see. Here's module 11 graph. Insert. And there it is. So, let me scroll right back there. There's the graph. That's it. Now, what am I going to ask you anything else about it? Sure I am. Explain what's going on in there. Tell me what you see. Tell me what you thought. All right. And there's a few other questions, but that's it for now. And I wish you well. I think you're going to have a lot of fun. The other reason to do all of this and to submit this graphic here is because you're going to have to submit a final data project that includes a lot of graphics that you create to back up your idea. And in order to do that, you got to get familiar with Fred. This gets you familiar with Fred, and in each module, you're going to be using data that is straight out of your textbook, straight out of things that we care the most about. For example, Module 12, it's going to be unemployment and inflation. Hey, who could ask for more fun than this? I'll talk to you later.